My husband and I use Google Calendar to manage our busy family schedules. And even though we kind of use it in different ways, it really is an essential way that we communicate, manage, and work without stress. Your calendar really is your most important organizational tool. So today, let me show you 5 things you need to manage your family schedules with Google Calendar. Hi, I'm Misty Winkler, and you've found Simply Convivial, where we talk about managing home life cheerfully. One of the ways that I do that is by keeping my calendar accurate and up to date, and then looking at it every day. But before your calendar is your most important organizational tool, before looking at it really helps, it has to be put together, set up in a way that makes it useful and effective in your day-to-day life. And in my family, we use Google Calendar because it allows my husband and I and my teenagers to sync our calendars and stay in communication so that we know where one another's time is going and what's on our family plate. So I want to give you a little tour of our family's Google Calendar while also sharing the 5 different tips that I have that you can put into place to make Google Calendar work for your family also. So let's dig in. All right, so my first tip for using Google Calendar. Okay, so my first tip for using Google Calendar is to use different colors and different calendars. Right now, what you see is just my calendar. So I have some Zoom sessions, some lives within my community, some appointments actually in town. And you'll also see here classes that the kids go to that I have to take them to. But anything that is purple on our calendar means that I have something to do with it. But you can see here that these ones aren't totally purple because I don't actually go to the dance class or the geometry class. So even though it's on my calendar, the geometry class is in my son's color of orange. So the little purple bar here, you can see shows that it's on my calendar, but the main event is orange. So I have to take my son to the geometry class or the girls here. Now actually, because my daughter had a graduated license and couldn't drive after dark, I had to drive the girls to their dance class. But now she doesn't have that restriction anymore, so I can actually come in here and edit so that the calendar that it shows up on is kids' schedules. So I can still keep up with who is going where, but it's not actually my availability that matters here. And now since I've added that girls dance class, changed the whole color, so we'll have to change the color here. That's right here. We'll do all of them. So now this doesn't actually, it's not an appointment for me, but it is something I keep track of with the kids' calendar. So now all the kids' events, those are notifications. We'll talk about them later. So the girls' dance class is here and they have a rehearsal for a performance, but my daughter drives. So it's not on my calendar. So I can just keep track. I'm not in charge of transportation. So we could put on here, my daughter also has her own calendar, so that's entirely yellow. So it's no one else, just her. Those are her jobs. She doesn't learn about her other work schedules until closer in the week. And my husband also uses Google Calendar. So then his things are all blue and his work things show up. Now, my husband also likes to put tasks on his Google Calendar, which is a highly contentious practice in the productivity world, but it's his calendar and he does what he wants. So he has putting out the garbage and checking for different bills. Those kind of things show up as actual events on his calendar. Now, we homeschool, and it turns out that homeschooling also takes time. Particular times, especially if you do things with people. So our school calendar shows our classes that we have, our classes that we do with other people. And so this is actually a shared calendar with the people that we do classes with. So if we cancel class or move class or whatever, it actually shows up the same on everybody's calendar, which is super handy, including what week we're in, what term we're in. This is all on a shared calendar. Now there's homeschool stuff that we just do on our own, in our own family. So those I have on a separate calendar that's not shared, but I'm still marking out the times that homeschooling takes, so I don't think that it's just free time or I don't schedule other things over it. I want to see that my time is spoken for when I look at my calendar, but yet the color communicates what kind of commitment it is. These aren't all equal. These are just things that are happening. Also, the logic class is an online class, so that's on our school calendar, but in my son's color, so that's something he has to show up for. It doesn't really impact me. So then I also have a time budget that I keep. A home time budget and business time budget. So by the time I put this in, all my time is actually spoken for. But most of these I don't have to see. This is more, the time budget calendars are more for planning and making sure, do I actually have the time to do the things that I think I'm going to do? And if so, when are they going to happen? So it's more like a planning and plotting for the week that I can make sure as I go like later, say I'm going to plan the next week here, I can start moving things around and say, oh, right now this one looks pretty good, but things aren't overlapping so that if something got scheduled, I would have to change things around so that it all actually fit, or I'd have to remove something from my expectations. So this leads me to my second tip for Google Calendar, and that is having different views. So because you have different calendars, you can then, you can turn them on and off and have only your actual obligations on the calendar. You can also set a view with the 3 dots here so that it displays only that one calendar. And so it's very easy to create a view and not see everything, but still have the opportunity to just plan things out in more granularity and in more detail. So there aren't any to show here, but I do have birthday events that say the year someone is born or the year someone got married, and it's an annually recurring event. And I can also go into these calendars and see them. You can say display only this calendar. I won't do that with the birthday since that has particular information, but you can say display only this calendar and then look at it in a schedule view, which will show just a list of all the things. So this can be handy for looking at what annual events are coming up. You can see them in different forms, different formats here. You can see a week at a time, you can see a month at a time, and this is very handy to have different views all pre-formatted. My third tip is to add in transition times as well as travel times if needed. So, for instance, here on for this class that my son takes, which is in person and local and down the road, I carpool with another friend, and so she takes him for this part of the Hebrew class, which is why it's on kids' schedules. He can go to his friend's house and get a ride. But for the Tuesday class, I pick up the friend, which means I need to leave a little extra early. And so the class time is there, but I need to add extra buffer time for picking someone up. And I need that reminder. So I have that built in. And you can also see that I try to add buffer times, a little tiny white space between different items, so that, because it turns out that transitioning between things does take time. So every single block really shouldn't be backed up one right against another. That kind of efficiency is a false efficiency, because you have to have time to get a drink, use the bathroom, grab your stuff, get out the door. So thinking about buffer time, it needs to either be included in the time block, like my outing with Knox. We really only spend half an hour actually at our table, our conversation time, but I have an hour block, because by the time we leave, we get there, we order, we sit down, we have our half-hour conversation, then we get back home, put our books away. It's an hour. So an hour is blocked off, even though it's a half-hour lesson. So my third tip for using Google Calendar to manage a busy family life is definitely to use notifications. So you can set up notifications specific to different calendars. So you might need for, your real life, obligation appointment calendar, you might want 15 or 20 or 30 minutes notification, because you have to get out the door in time and there's that travel time. But for things like a time budget, instead of setting a bunch of separate, distinct alarms on your phone, which can be difficult to track and manage, you can set up a calendar just for your time budget, just for your home responsibilities. And you can see I have a timer set up for it. You can get a notification, a little beeping, and set how many minutes of a notice you want. You can set that as different for each event, or you can also have a blanket notification setting for all events on the calendar. So you can see here for event notifications for all events on this calendar, by default, when I set them up, I'll have a 10-minute notification. It will pop up. It will pop up on my phone, on my computer, on my watch, and it will say exactly what the event is, so I know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I kind of, even if it's not working, I at least know what I'm behind on. And the great thing is, if, say, we're doing something here, I can just say we're going to be out of the house Tuesday. I can just delete this one, and only this one, not all of them, and I won't get that notification. I can say, you know what, I want to make sure on this day that I'm going to do the laundry before I leave for that afternoon appointment. And so I can move it, and then the notification will also move. Notifications on the calendar are a lifesaver. My fifth and final tip for managing your family calendar is to print a version. So I will go through and figure out who needs to see what calendar events, all the people's events, and then on Sunday evening or Monday morning, I will come over and print the weekly view. So the event shows up in the right color. If it's a different color, so the box is the box of the color of the calendar. And then inside, if I changed the color, that will show up as a box. So we have the gray for the kids' activities and the little colored square for whose activity it is. You can make it bigger, smaller, and more will fit. I just always use normal, landscape, and you can print a calendar. And this calendar, every week we put on the fridge. Now, things do change in a week, so sometimes it does become outdated, but the kids can make, physical note of that with a pen on the calendar. For my husband and I, because we're both using our technology with regularity, we both do our best to keep the calendar always up to date, so that either of us know if we're looking at the calendar, it's accurate. And we still double check with one another before scheduling things, but if we can't, or if we don't get in touch with someone ahead of time, we know most likely with like 90% surety that the calendar is accurate, so you can make an appointment, schedule something, and also put that on the calendar and know the other person will see it. But for that to be true, you have to keep the calendar accurate and look at the calendar. So usually in the morning and the evening, at the very least, I will always look over the whole rest of the week and maybe glance at the week to come. And then those notifications are coming, so I know what I put on my calendar because it keeps popping up. And if I keep ignoring it, I probably need to just delete that event because it's wishful thinking and not reality. But these are some more practical use tips for calendars in general, and to get more tips on using just calendars in general or making plans, you'll want to watch this video right here.